guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about mistakes to avoid in a medical coding job interview. If you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay guys, so if you have gotten your first interview in medical coding, or maybe you've been on a few interviews, here are some things to avoid as somebody who has no experience. Number one, you want to avoid highlighting the fact that you have no experience. You want to talk about your transferable skills. You want to talk about your schooling. You want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about the fact that you need somebody to train you, because if you say you need training in coding, that's the number one reason why you're not getting a call, because nobody wants to train. They want people who can hit the ground running and they're ready to go. This field is all about being able to do your research and working independently. Yes, you can reach out if you have questions about some of the coding situations, because not everybody knows everything, and even veteran coders have to ask each other sometimes for a second opinion. However, that's not going to be your number one thing that you do, is always run to your supervisor, your coding lead, to ask for help. You have to be able to do things on your own. And so highlighting and talking about your transferable skills is one of those good things, because you can always say that whatever position that you had, if you had to do a lot of research, you can always talk about that in the interview. So anything that highlights the fact that you are strong, you have a strong capability to work independently, and that you can problem solve is huge when you're first starting out. Because again, no one wants to hear from the candidate that is saying that, oh, nobody wants to hire me because I don't have experience and I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. Don't say that, okay? And no employer wants to feel like you're going to use them, okay? You need to show that you're interested in working there. Even if you know personally that that is going to be a stepping stone position for you, you don't need to highlight that in the interview either. You need to talk about why you're interested in working in that position, why you're interested in that particular organization. Because then they're going to say, okay, this person knows about our corporate history, about our organizational history. And so that way, this person is really interested in what we have to do here. And this would be a really good candidate, because this is not somebody that has to be told this. You did this on your own before you got into that interview. So you want to highlight those things. That's going to be the candidate that gets called back. Of course, along with the fact that you have to pass your assessment test. But this is just the interview speaking process and some of the mistakes that people make. And I see them because they talk about it on LinkedIn, and they talk about, oh, that they talked about this, they talked about that. These are the things that I would never speak about in a job interview for medical coding as my first time as a medical coder. And the second thing to avoid talking about is your family, your kids, anything that they think is going to potentially take you away from focusing on your work. If you start talking about, oh, when they say, tell me about yourself, and you say, oh, I have 3 kids and they're all little, and I just want to be at home with them, so that's why I applied for this job because it's remote, I'm not going to hire you. Because that's saying that you are not going to be focused on your work. You're going to be there because of your kids, and the work is going to be secondary. So you need to, when they ask you to tell them about yourself, you need to talk about the fact that you were coming from whatever industry it was, and that you had an interest in pursuing medical coding, and then you list your reasons, and let it be something intellectual, not that, oh, because I want to be at home with my kids. Don't say that, because again, you're not going to get hired. While the majority of medical coders are women, and there are a lot of mothers in the industry, so they do understand, that cannot be the focus of your interview. It has to be geared towards the coding. It has to be geared towards what you know about coding and all of your experience that can help you along the way. That's what it needs to be. A lot of times people think that, well, the interview is about connecting with that other person. Yes, and you're not being deceitful when you're talking about your past history of doing whatever industry you're coming from. You're not being deceitful about that. You're talking about what's going to help you in this situation, in this particular position, because that's what it should be about. That's the whole purpose of it. And remember, these interviewers only have a little bit of time to make their decision about who they want to hire. So the strongest candidate, if I'm a hiring manager, the strongest candidate to me would be somebody that is going to tell me, okay, this is what I know, this is my educational background, and this is how I can help you, because it's all about how you can help them. It's not about how they can help you. How they can help you will be when you start in the industry, in their organization, but not beforehand. So make sure that you're not talking about your family, you're not talking about your kids. Don't show pictures of your kids. I've heard about that too. And I follow a lot of people that do HR and things like that on Instagram. And one person was talking about how they didn't want, at their organization, they didn't want people that were going to be distracted because they needed people who were going to be focused on the task that they were giving them. So they said that if there was people that, seemed preoccupied with their family, they were going to fall on the list of possible candidates. Now, there's a lot of things to that, and where they say, oh no, we don't do that. You don't want to set yourself up for that possibility. So what they did at this one organization is the lady that was interviewing had a picture of children in the background. And so people who were asking her about her supposed kids, which it wasn't even her kids. It was just a picture of random kids. And she was like, oh yes, those are my kids. And they started talking about kids. And so all of a sudden it's just like, okay, this person is children focused. Now there's nothing wrong with being a parent and working. Nothing wrong at all, like I said. But the interview, if you're hearing me, the interview is not the place to talk about that. Once you get in, oh yeah, absolutely. You want to talk about your kids? Absolutely. But don't do it beforehand, okay? They need to know that you are a viable candidate by your interest in coding and your knowledge and your capability. That's what you need to focus and highlight when you are talking with them and discussing those things, okay? So that's the number 2 thing to avoid, is talking about your family. The other thing is this: if they are asking you what are your future plans, you need to make it where it's geared towards that position. Don't talk about, oh yeah, well, I want to move up and I want to do this and I want to do that. Everybody wants to move up. Yes, everybody wants to move ahead in their career. But again, in the interview, this interview has got to be able to pick a candidate that's going to be there with them. And sometimes when they're doing these interviews, this organization may be an organization that has had a lot of turnover for whatever reason, and they need to pick somebody that is going to stay and not somebody that's just going to run off on them. So again, you need to show loyalty in the way that you can, as far as saying that you're interested in growing within the organization, not that you're trying to take off on them, okay? Because again, that's going to be what they're going to be looking at. They have to make sure that this person is going to do the work that they're assigned, that they are going to be able to get along with their coworkers, and they're going to be able to accept challenges as they come. Now, of course, obviously you don't want to be too challenged as far as like it turns into a lot of pressure. You don't want to do that, but at the same time, there's a reasonable amount, okay? And there's that you can talk about as well. But again, don't make it where you're trying to leave there all of a sudden, okay? So that's the other thing. And if you have a degree, you have the RHIT, which is the Registered Health Information Technician, which means you have an associate's degree in health information technology, or you have the RHIA, the Registered Health Information Administrator, meaning you have a bachelor's degree in health information management. You want to talk about whatever that position requires you to do. These credentials, these are for our leaders. So if you are wanting to be in a coding position and you're showing up with the RHIT or the RHIA, then you need to talk about the fact that you're going to be getting a medical coding certification in however many months, okay, whether it's 6 months or 3 months or whatever, and that you've been studying for it. That's what they need to see, because sometimes they will want you to be certified in medical coding, because the Registered Health Information Technician, the Registered Health Information Administrator, these designations are for our leaders. I don't care who told you what. I don't, because I know. And if you look at the syllabus in these college degree programs, you will see that a lot of it is not even about coding. It is about leading people, it's about data collection, it's about data analytics and those types of things. So that's what those degrees are designed for. And people get sucked into, oh, you know, I thought I had to have a degree. No, medical coders don't have to have degrees. We don't. We need to have medical coding certifications. And don't tell me that your facility only hires degree holders, because I know that's not true. I do my research and I look at the job listings, and it says if you have this or if you have a medical coding certification that they'll accept you. But again, you have to understand that a lot of times when these job listings are out there, it is somebody that is an HR doing it. So they don't know what we do. And a lot of times it's not somebody from the health information department that is putting together this job listing. So keep that in mind before you think that you have to have it, because no, you don't. You don't have to have a college degree. Okay, I'm just saying. So that's the other thing too. You want to make sure that you let them know that you want to be there. You want to grow within the organization. You want to be able to build your skill set, you know, but not your skill set so that you can take off. You keep that information to yourself, okay? So that's the other thing. So the other thing is this. When you are in your interview, you want to make sure that you are speaking clearly and you are not mumbling. I've seen a lot of people go into these interviews and they mumble, you know, because they get really nervous and things like that. Your speech needs to be clear. And you don't need to be like, oh, you know, oh, I'm sorry. I wouldn't hire the person who is constantly apologizing for nothing either. Because it's not cute, it's not demure, it's not sweet. It is annoying. It is annoying when people mumble. It is annoying when people apologize profusely for nothing. But yet, if people need to apologize because they did something wrong, those are the people that can't even apologize for that. So that's the thing that you have to understand, that if you are going into this interview, they're going to be looking at everything. How you speak, how you carry yourself, how you are presenting what you know, your knowledge and your skill. And you need to be as confident as possible. If you need to spend time in front of the mirror answering practice questions, like basic coding questions, you know, what does ICD-10-CM stand for? What does ICD-10-PCS stand for? What does HIPAA stand for? Okay, a lot of people can't answer that question, HIPAA. They think it's 2 P's. I'm like, really? So don't do that. Don't be the person that does that with the 2 P's. Don't do that, okay? You need to know what these basic things are. And this is part of the stuff that you learn when you're in the coding programs anyway. So don't think that this is stuff that's all that you've never heard before. There's just some of the things that when you are going to some of these places like these organizations, and especially if it's a specialty place, if it's an orthopedic specialty place, then you know you need to go over the musculoskeletal section of that the ICD-10-CM book, and of course the CPT manual. And you also need to go over the injury section as well and have a good grasp on those things. If you're applying for a, I was going to say vascular, but cardiovascular place, you know, you need to go over the cardio section of the book and so on and so forth. So just make sure that you do that so that you can prepare yourself. And so that way you're ready. And then when you're in there, that way they know that you're already prepared. And it's one thing to say that you're somebody who is prepared and that you know how to do your research. And it's another thing to show it. See, there's a lot of talk, but sometimes there's not a lot of action out of people. So you want to be the person who can talk and also demonstrate that, yes, this is what I did. Now, these things to avoid, I want you guys to know this also. That, of course, sometimes you get called in for an interview and it's because that company is doing a check the box, okay? They're doing a check the box. And while it's not right because they're calling you in knowing that they're not going to hire you, it's not a wasted effort because, one, you are getting those connections. They're meeting you. You're face to face with people who do coding or who manage coders. So the questions that they ask you, that's going to help you to build your knowledge for what the next person may be looking for. Or it may be able to highlight, okay, this is where I'm not strong. This is where I need to study. So it's going to make you a better candidate because you're going to have more and more of these interviews. So it's not a wasted effort, and it's not something to get impatient about. Well, they interviewed me, but they're not going to hire me. But you got practice, right? You got practice into being in this interview. Your next interview is probably going to be less nerve-wracking because you've already been through the interview process. You've already interviewed before. So you know what it's like to be in a job interview. So that's something that you can think about there. We need to think about these interviews in a more positive way, because a lot of people want to interview once and then they want to get hired. But you don't know if you're going to like to work at that place too, right? That's the other thing, is that not only are they interviewing you, but you're interviewing them. You do have some control in these interviews, believe it or not, even if you're brand new with no experience. Because why? You have skill, and you have the most up-to-date skill, right? Because if you just finished a medical coding program and you're out there applying because you got your certification, that's something that you need to think about there too, is that you are interviewing them. If you're asking them questions, and I'll have to do another video where I talk about like questions to ask, but if you're doing an interview and they're asking you questions, you need to be prepared to ask questions as well. Because the other mistake that people need to avoid is when they say, do you have any questions? No, you need to be asking questions. It doesn't matter if you covered a lot of things in this interview. There's got to be something that they have not covered, or there's got to be something else that you want to know. That's what they're going to be paying attention to. Because again, if I'm asking the person questions and they're not engaging with me, they're just so scared, like deer in the headlights, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I'm just so nervous. If that nervousness is consuming you, that's not the person I want to hire either. I want the person who, and this is what employers are looking for, I want the person who's enthusiastic about coding. I want the person that knows that this is a serious business, and I want the person that is going to apply themselves and attempt and try and make that effort. Not the person that has to have their hand held. That's the thing that gets to me the most. You know, I even see it on social media when, you know, these influencers out there, it doesn't matter what it is, and they say, oh, well, if you want to have me send you this link or whatever, comment link or whatever, and you see a bunch of people commenting, and then the person sends the link because they do that to generate the amount of traffic and things like that on their page, right? And they do that for monetary reasons, that kind of thing. But then that teaches people to be lazy. That teaches people to, like, if I ask for this, then I'm just the person who's gonna give it to me, that is on the video. You know, I had somebody comment, give me a list. Give you a list of what? First of all, who are you? Give me a list. Give me a list of what? If you want something, you need to say what it is. But first of all, you need to be doing your research. It's that simple. But that's the thing. You know, oh, and the person came back, oh, I'm sorry, I meant this. Okay, then you need to be clear then. Because that's another mistake that new medical coders in these interviews are making, is that when they are asking questions, of course they want the answers, but they're not asking questions that is going to be fruitful to a conversation, as far as like, these are just regular questions that, oh, I can look this stuff up. That's what I mean, is that if it's basic questions that you can look up and you ask that, that's not the person I want. I want the person that thinks of a creative question. I want the person that wants a specific answer because it's not readily known or it's not readily available, that information. That's what I'm getting at. So that's what you need to think about when you're going into these interviews. And don't be so nervous. You know, the thing about it is, when you're nervous, it's because you have all this energy. Do a quick walk around the block or wherever you got to go. Just do a quick walk around the block. And so that way you can get out some of that energy. It's not that bad, guys. It's not that bad. Okay? And you also want to, the other mistake to avoid is not being prepared as far as like bringing a copy of your resume. Now, a lot of people will not bring a copy because they don't think that they need it, or they think that the employer has it. A lot of times they don't. They have a list of the people that they're going to interview that day. And okay, well, we have this person, we're going to interview, and I have no idea about them because I don't have their resume in front of me. It's your responsibility to bring your resume too. So that way, even though they may have it, they may not have it. Somebody else extra may be in that room. They may bring somebody else in. Well, now you have a copy that you can furnish for them. So that's the thing that, again, going above and beyond, and that's one of those detail things. So, and the last thing to avoid when you are in a job interview for medical coding, the last thing that you want to do when you are in this interview is not be as engaged with the questions. When they're asking you a question, you never give them a one-word answer. Okay? I want y'all to understand that. Don't ever give them a one-word answer. You want to expand on that answer. You want to say, if they say, okay, well, what are your interests in coding? Or are you interested in a particular specialty? Whatever, okay? And you say, oh yeah, cardio. And that's it. And then the interviewer has to keep poking along for the questions. You want to make sure that you say, I'm interested in cardio because of XYZ. And I was reading this thing online. I was watching this video on YouTube about cardio. I was watching this. I got this book. You need to talk about why. So again, you never give one word responses, because that's going to show them that there's a lack of interest there. And you're just kind of filling in the blank. You need to tell them why. So be clear and look at every single person in the room. If you're going in person, you need to be making eye contact. I know that that's nerve-wracking, but that can be nerve-wracking, especially if you're an introvert person. But it's not impossible, guys. It's not the scariest thing in the world. They are just as nervous as you. You know that? They are just as nervous as you. So make sure that you are looking each person in the eye, and that if you are meeting with them in person and you're shaking their hand, I've always talked about, a nice firm handshake. I don't know why that this is so confusing for people, because I always get 100 emails after, oh, Blue, what do you mean? Oh, I think my handshake is too strong. I don't know. Guys, come on. It's a handshake. It's a nice, firm handshake, not this little dead fish handshake crap. I don't know what this is. That's not a handshake. This is a handshake, okay? That should be your handshake to those folks, all right? Now, yes, I know, years ago, we weren't shaking hands. But it's something to be said about the ability to be able to do that now. And if that's not something that you are used to, you need to practice. There's somebody in your household that can help you with that. There's somebody at your workplace that you can ask, or you can just stick your hand out and you can start getting into that practice of shaking hands. We are losing a lot of our social skills as a society now because of the internet, because of TikTok and, the instant hit of dopamine after 10 seconds, because we're watching these little short clips and things like that. Everything is virtual now. There's more people today working remotely, and there's less and less people interacting on a normal basis. Our children, the children of the world, are into their cell phones, they're into their iPads or whatever it is that they're working with now. They're not outside playing, and they're not out there, socializing with other kids. Everything is online. And so that hurts our social skills. It hurts our social abilities. But we don't have to let it. And that's one of the things that, when you're in these interviews and they say, okay, well, it's nice to meet you, things like that. If somebody gives you a dead fish handshake, that's on them. You need to make sure that you're firm when you're giving a handshake, and you look that person in the eye, because that's a person of integrity. The person that shies away, doesn't want to look and does this, no, that's not the person I want. That's not the person I want. Doesn't matter how smart you are. Because why? Because again, this person is going to have to go up in front of providers. They're going to have to be able to communicate with these alpha personalities. As scary as that may be, it's not impossible to communicate with providers. And it's actually fun once you start getting into it. But you have to be willing to give yourself the opportunity to get into it. And the people that are so scared of everything are the ones that are going to avoid these things. So that's the thing that you guys have to understand. When you are out there applying for these jobs in the real world, and you are being person to person with these people, then you need to be as confident as possible, and you need to be as engaged with them as you can. Okay, even if you're not used to it, you need to find ways to practice, because if it's important to you, you'll find a way to make it so. And the other thing, if you are interviewing virtually, I've done videos before about interviewing virtually, and one of the things that I do say is that if you are going to interview virtually, you need to be in a quiet room. You don't need to be in your car. I wouldn't hire you if you were interviewing from your car, because this is somebody that's on the go. Why can't you be someplace where it's quiet? And so that's the thing. You have to be in a place that's quiet. Don't use that background blurred thing. I don't like that, because yes, while you don't want people to see what's in your background, it's annoying, especially if you have to show something on the screen and you can't see it because it blurs over. So what you want to do is, if you're in a job interview for medical coding and you're doing this virtually, then you need to make sure that your screen, your camera is facing a blank wall. Everything is clean and it's quiet. You need to be in a place where you can be in a quiet space for a little while. Nothing worse than trying to interview somebody, dogs barking, kids screaming, doors slamming, and things like that. There's no need for that. There's no need for that. You need to show them that you are going to be responsible. If this is a remote position, that you're going to be responsible enough that you can have a quiet space in a quiet area. You don't have to go out to your car and interview. You can interview from your home. And it's got a nice, clear, clean background. That's why I always say to back it up to a wall, okay? There does not need to be cats, dogs right next to you. The cat doesn't need to be walking across the, oh, this is my cat, and oh, the cat needs to be put into the next room. Again, we don't need to have distractions when we're interviewing. If the dog is right there barking and things going on, no, we don't need that either. It's not cute, guys. You don't know if that person is a cat person or a dog person. You don't know if they are or not. And don't take the chance, because that may be the one thing that's going to keep you from getting a call back. You never know. You never know. You may think that's just a ridiculous thing to say, Blue. No, it's not. Because these interviewers are going to be looking for anything and everything that they have to in order to figure out if they want you or not. You need to make the best impression that you possibly can. And if you are interviewing virtually, you also need to make sure that you're looking at the lens of the camera, not at yourself. Don't look at yourself talking to yourself, because you can see you. You need to be looking right at the camera, right at the lens, so that way they know that you're talking to them. Okay? And you always show up on time to these interviews. Do not be late. Do not be late to these interviews. If you are interviewing virtually, you need to make sure that all of you can sign in to the interview appointment. You've got everything worked out. There's not going to be, I can't connect. I can't do this. I can't. Again, another thing that they're looking for, can you problem solve if you can't get connected? Do you have a good connection to the internet? Again, everything counts, guys. Everything does. So with that said, some of the things to avoid, and hopefully this video helps you, because these are small common sense things that you do need to avoid. Okay, and again, I will do more videos about this, about like questions to ask and things like that, but these are some of the questions, these are some of the things to avoid. Okay, but like I said, don't talk about your kids, don't talk about your spouse, don't talk about your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your fiance. Don't bring it up. Nothing about your home life needs to be talked about in this interview. It needs to be about you and your skill. Okay? If you start to get into that conversation, they start to kind of steer you towards that conversation, You need to gently get yourself out of that conversation. You need to redirect. You need to pivot the conversation so that you don't have to answer these questions, because they don't need to be asking you personal questions like that. Okay. That's not right. All right. But again, you don't need to bring it up either. Okay. That's all I'm saying. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Best of luck to you guys out there. And I will, if this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.